In this series, we've covered a number of American operas. Pieces like Carlisle Floyd's Of Mice and Men, Cold Sassy Tree, Andre Previn's A Streetcar Named Desire, and Tobias Picker's Thérèse Raquin. These are well worth hearing and experiencing in the opera house, and they each have a distinctly American flavor. But this season, we're going to discuss an opera that's already an American classic, a piece that has been regularly produced since its premiere in 1958, and announced to the world that American opera had reached maturity. The opera, Vanessa, score by Samuel Barber, with a libretto by Giancarlo Menotti. I'm Nick Reveles, and this is OperaTalk. The composer Samuel Barber was born in West Chester, Pennsylvania in 1910, and he seemed destined to live a life in music from childhood. After all, his aunt was the great Metropolitan Opera contralto Louise Homer, herself married to a composer, Sidney Homer. While a student at the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia, Barber met another young composer, Giancarlo Menotti. Born in Italy in the town of Cadigliano in 1911, Menotti came to this country in 1928 to study composition at Curtis, and the two began a close relationship that continued through the rest of their lives. But whereas Menotti had success in opera relatively early on in his career, with a Metropolitan Opera debut of his first opera, Amelia Goes to the Ball, in 1938, Barber was finding his compositional voice by writing songs, chamber music, and symphonic works. His reputation as a composer was canonized by the 1938 broadcast of his first essay for orchestra and the now ubiquitous Adagio for Strings by the NBC Orchestra under the baton of Arturo Toscanini. Heady stuff for a 28-year-old American. By the time of the Toscanini broadcast, Barber was already seen as being at the head of a movement back towards romanticism in music. His musical style was the antithesis of the 12-tone school being espoused by young American composers and academics coming home from studies in Europe. Barber's musical language was totally connected to his desire to connect emotionally with the audience. Although his music could be dissonant, it was always lyrical and expressive, unbound by theories of atonality. Probably because of this accessible style, he received many important commissions. Rudolph Bing, the director of the Metropolitan Opera, offered Barber a commission for an opera based on the composer's success in these other fields of composition, convinced that his inherent lyricism would lend itself well to the form. In searching for a librettist, Barber turned to a number of contemporary authors. But eventually, in a rather bold move, Barber turned to his close friend Menotti to write the libretto for the opera. More as inspiration for the libretto than a true source, the two composers turned to Isak Dinesen's 7 Gothic Tales for the opera's setting in an unnamed northern country in a quasi-Victorian period, and used the haunting atmosphere that pervades that work. Both Rudolph Bing and Samuel Barber wanted Vanessa to be a vehicle for the great Greek-American soprano Maria Callas. They felt that, given Callas's temperament, she'd be a perfect fit for this tragic woman who has been tortured by the memory of past love and who, refusing to accept reality, is desperate to relive that past no matter what the consequences. But Callas, shrewdly realizing that the character of Erica, Vanessa's niece, would be a star turn for whoever took the role, declined. Sina Uranak was contracted to actually sing the role, but canceled at a moment's notice, and the Met management turned to Eleanor Stieber 6 weeks prior to opening night. Although the role was extremely demanding, Stieber learned it and eventually made it her own. The young mezzo Rosalind Elias was cast in the role of Erica and proved Callas to be correct. She nearly walked off with the opera, so convincing was she in her portrayal of Vanessa's niece. Filling out the cast were tenor Nikolai Geda as the lover, Anatole, mezzo Regina Resnick as Vanessa's mother, the Baroness, and bass Giorgio Tozzi as the old doctor. The star-studded cast was under the baton of Dmitri Metropolis. The first performance on January 15, 1958, was an unqualified success with the audience and with many of the critics, although they were somewhat qualified in their judgment. It is a shame that Menotti as a composer never received the same kind of success at the Met with his own operas, which were destined to achieve greater admiration on television and in regional companies throughout the world. But given the success of Vanessa, it wasn't long before the Met came back to Barber with a commission for a grand opera to open their new home at Lincoln Center in 1966. Antony and Cleopatra opened on September 16th of that year to more fanfare and hoopla than any other opera had in the history of the Met. Despite an all-star cast that included Leontine Price, Jess Thomas, and Justino Diaz, the opera was one of the great disappointments in the company's history of commission for new opera. The disappointing reception of Antony dealt a blow to Barber's compositional process from which he was not to recover. Although he wrote a handful of works after 1966, he was never to regain the stature he enjoyed during the height of his success with Vanessa. When he died of cancer in 1981 at the age of 70, his librettist and longtime companion, Menotti, was at his bedside. Menotti, as of the time of this broadcast, remains active in the opera world as a stage director and recently celebrated his 93rd birthday. The opera is set in a lavish home in a northern European country around the year 1905. Vanessa, her mother the Baroness, and her niece Erica are expecting Vanessa's former lover, Anatole, whom she hasn't seen in 20 years. The disappointment of that love caused her to close up the house, cover all the pictures in the mirrors, and become a recluse. A fierce snowstorm, Vanessa suspects, has delayed Anatole's arrival, and the tension mounts. The Baroness sits silently as Erica tries to entertain Vanessa by reading out loud. A tower bell announces the arrival of a carriage, and a young man stands in the darkness of the doorway. Not looking at him, Vanessa recounts her feelings of love, then turns to find it isn't the man that she expected. She screams and runs from the room. Erica enters and in conversation comes to understand that this is not Anatole, the lover of previous years, but Anatole, the son of that lover by another woman. Erica sees him as a charming, handsome stranger, and they sit down to the table that was set for Vanessa and her Anatole. The second scene occurs a month later. Vanessa and the young Anatole have become fast friends, and they're outside ice skating while Erica and the Baroness talk about what happened that first fateful night that she met the handsome stranger. Erica allowed him to seduce her. He has said he wants to marry her, but Erica expects love, not marriage out of duty. Vanessa and Anatole enter, along with the family doctor. Vanessa proceeds to tell them all that she plans to have a gala ball during which all of the mirrors which have been covered with cloth for so many years will finally be uncovered, and a new spirit will inspire her house. The men leave, and Vanessa reveals to Erica the love that has grown between herself and the young Anatole. Erica is shocked, of course, and looks for Anatole to give him the opportunity to explain himself. He tells her that he isn't capable of promising love, only his hand in friendship and affection. As everyone else departs for church, she determines that Vanessa will have her lover, and she will not be an obstacle to her aunt's happiness. A gala New Year's ball ensues, the old doctor arriving and drunkenly muttering that he has an important announcement to make. Erica and the Baroness don't come down for the party, much to Vanessa's annoyance, but she is buoyed by Anatole's love for her. Just as Erica appears at the top of the stairs, the doctor announces the engagement of Vanessa and Anatole. Erica faints, but when she revives, she mumbles, his child, it must not be born." And then suddenly she runs out into the cold winter night. In the final act, we find Vanessa in Erica's bedroom, trying to imagine why Erica would do something so desperate. She's brought into the room unconscious, the doctor assuring Vanessa that her niece will recover. Vanessa then asks Anatole whether Erica's attempt at suicide was because of him, and he denies it, saying that Erica does not love him. Erica asks to be alone with her grandmother, the Baroness, and in their conversation, Erica tells her that Anatole's child will not be born. The old woman turns from her and leaves the room silently. The last scene finds Vanessa and Anatole as newlyweds preparing to leave for Paris to begin their lives together. Vanessa and Erica talk, the aunt revealing that she's leaving everything, all her estate, to her young niece. But she still wants to know why Erica attempted suicide. Erica can only answer that it was not because of Anatole, but just a foolish act that marked the end of her youth. She refuses, even now, to destroy Vanessa's illusion of happiness. As the new couple leave the house, with the Baroness sitting silently, Erica orders the staff to recover the mirrors, to again drape the pictures and lock the gates. It is now Erica's turn to wait. In order to continue our discussion about Samuel Barber's Vanessa, I've invited the resident conductor of San Diego Opera, Karen Keltner, to join me for a conversation about this wonderful opera. Karen, welcome.
Thank you, Nick. It's great to be here.
I think our audience would be very interested, and I'm curious. You've got the responsibility of conducting a piece that's not often done, and I don't think you've ever conducted it before.
No,
it's new to you.
Not this, yes.
And you've had some difficult scores to conduct over the years here. Tobias Picker's Thérèse Raquin, for one, and Andre Previn's Streetcar. How do you approach a new piece for the first time as a conductor? What's your process?
The first time I had a brand new piece like that, I was terrified. Now my first inclination is just excitement. And I know that sounds like a pat answer, but it's true. The idea of conducting a piece that hasn't been done in a locale is very stimulating, because you have an open tablet, as it were. Obviously, you have the score. If there are recordings, well in advance, I'm talking years if I have that much lead time, I try to listen, but I don't sit with the score and listen to a recording note for note. I put it on. This is a test I've learned over time to kind of do with myself. And I let it wash over a bit. I'm not terribly successful at doing other things while I'm listening to any music, but insofar as I can, I do that a little bit.
Just sort of let it wash over you
well,
and
yes,
get used to the
because
style.
when I was in school, we were told, oh, no decent conductor ever listens to recordings. Well, or pianist, I think that's a little bit of hooey, frankly, because that medium is available to us. How stupid not to take advantage.
Well, particularly when we have the original cast recording
the cast recording, the composer present. Many times that happens with, so I do listen to it. In the case of some repertoire that maybe isn't brand new, or even some of the brand new things, if there's a recording, that gives me a clue as to when I actually then, next step, go to the piece myself, what I want to be aware of as a place where I want to make it live a little bit more, or help the composer make it live a little bit more. So the idea is that I want to carry the excitement about doing a new piece into the actual doing of it. So I need to be, for me, pretty much in love with the piece, which I am with Vanessa.
Oh, it's a great work.
It's a wonderful piece. And then I'm aware of looking at the piece, coupled with what I've heard, whether or not it's a piece that has to be really figured out metrically, or whether it's a piece that depends more on lyricism. I mean, every piece...
Then you would conduct it from phrase to phrase rather
well, you know, yes and no. I mean, you can never conduct just phrases. An orchestra won't respond to that because particularly in the harder, newer pieces, even if it's got beautiful phrases, many times the technical aspects of the piece for each individual musician or the orchestra collectively is tricky. So you must always maintain clarity so that those forces know what's happening, even though maybe there's a huge sweep of phrase. But a piece, for example, Thérèse Raquin, was a metric puzzle to figure out. And then the music, for me, as the conductor, layered on top of it. Barber is obviously of a different generation, many different generations than Tobias Picker, a few at least. He has a certain lushness, an immediacy of lushness of lyricism that is very seductive. However, it's also very complicated instrumentally for the individual instruments and the orchestra. The strings, yes, but they function as a unit a lot. But you know, there's very many solo winds.
I was just thinking about that because there are all these little noodling phrases for winds that are hidden or off the beat, and
that it's like solo concerti for winds many times. So that one has to approach, and this is while singing obviously is going on. So you have your singers you need to be there for. But I maintain, of course, that the orchestra needs to be attended to in a particular way also. So it just depends on the piece, how one and the steps one takes. It's like a brand new puzzle every time you have a new piece, and the excitement and the newness of how this one is different from the last one. No single piece is the same. None of these modern pieces are the same in my approach to them. But what I love now about doing them is the fact that I look forward to discovering those differences and bringing them to life.
That's great. Karen, thank you so much for enlightening us about
You're
the
very
process
welcome.
of a conductor. Thank you.
Enjoy, Vanessa.
It's always fascinating to try to decipher the ways that operatic composers use music to delineate the characters in their operas. And it's certainly no less interesting to try to break the code in Vanessa. The main character is a complex person, at one point passionate or hysterical, at another haunted by memory and nostalgic for a past that will never repeat itself. Her more active manic side is expressed in that orchestral introduction. After the curtain opens, Barber gives us an indication of the atmosphere in this house, where Vanessa has virtually locked herself up, where her mother, the Baroness, no longer speaks to her, and where the young and beautiful Erica is trapped with two older women, each of whom expresses their bitterness in different but poisonous ways. This moment is even marked in the score, dark and unquiet, so there's no question about what's being described. Musicologist John W. Freeman tells us of this moment in the score that it sounds like a stalking figure, like someone pacing a room. But Vanessa has her lyrical moments as well. In Act 1, Scene 2, after the ice skating excursion with Anatole, she describes to Erica the conversation she's had with him and recounts to Erica's horror the growing love between them. In the orchestra, we hear one of those long lyrical lines for which Barber is so well known. other characters have expressive music as well. Anatole, although he's something of a manipulative cad, has some lovely music as he lets Erica down easily in the second scene, telling her that he can only love her as a friend. Another interesting theme of Anatole's occurs when he warns Vanessa in Act 2 that love has a bitter core. One of the most touching moments of the score is given over to Erica, who, in the very first scene, looks out over the snow-covered garden and sings her aria, "Must the Winter Come So Soon." This is one of those truly romantic moments for which Barber is justly known. But Erica has other shorter motives attached to her. One of them opens the second scene after she's been seduced by Anatole and as she relates the whole event to her grandmother, the Baroness. This short idea perfectly expresses her frustration over her erstwhile lover. I told you it was short. This idea is developed throughout this scene, and the act ends with it as she determines that she will not lay claim to Anatole, but will let Vanessa try to re-find her own long-lost happiness through him. But one of the most powerful moments in the score is when Erica informs her grandmother that as a result of her rushing out of the party into the snow, she's lost the baby, Anatole's child that she was carrying. At the moment she informs the Baroness of this, the old woman rises out of her chair with a thump of her cane, turns her back on Erica, and walks out of the room, to remain mute now to a second generation of women in this family, disgusted as she is by the denial of reality and the lack of courage which she finds in everyone around her. The music which accompanies this moment in the orchestra is a deformed, abortive version of Anatole's theme. The music of Vanessa is certainly powerful and expresses all of the subtle and not so subtle emotions that come to play in this sad but memorable household. Like all the truly great opera composers, Barber expresses it all perfectly through brilliant orchestration and lyrical lines for his sad, flawed characters. Composer Samuel Barber and librettist Giancarlo Menotti are well represented on CD, and in fact there are two wonderful recordings of Vanessa that I'm sure you'll enjoy. The most important one is the original cast recording made in 1958, not long after the premiere of the work at the Metropolitan Opera. The cast includes Eleanor Steber as Vanessa, Rosalind Elias as Erica in her Met debut role, Regina Resnick as the Baroness, Nikolai Geda as Anatole, and Giorgio Tozzi as the Doctor, all under the baton of Dmitri Mitropoulos. If you're following this recording with the score, however, you should note that it's the original version of the opera, before Barber made his revision in 1964. The revised score can be heard in this newer budget-priced CD from Naxos, with Ellen Chickering, Andrea Matthews, Marion Dry, and Ray Bowens under the direction of Gil Rose. Of course, Giancarlo Menotti is rather accessible on CD as well, with a number of recordings available of his great Christmas classic, A Mall and the Night Visitors. This was the first opera written expressly for television, and it was broadcast on Christmas Eve in 1951. But Menotti's most powerful opera, in my mind, is The Consul, and it's represented in the catalog by this new recording under the baton of Richard Hickox, with Susan Bullock as Magda Sorel. And one of my all-time favorite pieces by Menotti has to be The Death of the Bishop of Brindisi, and I've waited for years for this piece to be reissued on CD. It's essentially a church or chancel opera for chorus and two soloists, superbly sung in this original recording by George London and Lily Chukazian under the direction of Eric Leinsdorf. This is a compilation album, though, so as a bonus you get a classic recording of Verdi's Requiem and Schoenberg's early post-romantic oratorio, Gudelieder. I know you'll enjoy the opera, though, taken from the tragic tale of the medieval children's crusade. Unfortunately, there is no DVD or video of Vanessa, but I guess that means you'll just have to go to the theater and see it for yourself. Vanessa is the story of a woman haunted by her past and seemingly doomed to repeat it. It's about loss, memory, nostalgia, passion, and deception. You don't want to miss a performance of this, Barber's greatest work for the stage. It's an opera in which lyricism abounds, and for those of us who love opera, that's what it's all about, isn't it? I'm Nick Reveles, and I'll see you at the opera.